on an all-new Dr. Phil. She was in the wrong place
I woke up feeling the barrel of the gun.
at the wrong time.
They were targeting your roommate.
I thought they were going to burn us alive.
Plus, near Castro's House of Horrors, his girlfriend went missing.
Jose was the prime suspect for 18 years.
Has this cold case
Someone has confessed.
been solved?
You two still believe that Jose is involved in some way? Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
I hate to see people suffering, and you've hurt long enough.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
Both of you, take
I'm going to get you the help that you need.
5, 4.
This is going to be a changing day in your life. Everyone knows the saying, wrong place at the wrong time, right? We've all heard that. Well, no one knows that better than Bailey, who woke up and found herself in the middle of a nightmare and face to face with the barrel of a gun. Take a look.
A friend from work invited me to come stay at their house for free so I could save money. The following day, I came home from work, went to bed around 10:30. In the middle of the night, there was the barrel of a gun pressed against the back of my neck. A man was crouching over me and whispered in my ear, "Don't put up a fight and you won't get hurt." Then he slapped a piece of duct tape over my mouth. I had some kind of blindfold thing that went all around my head that he just pulled down, tied my wrists, did the same thing to my ankles. He dragged me down the hallway. I heard two people beating my roommate. I heard the sound of fists hitting flesh. They picked me up and they kind of tossed me in the back of some kind of big utility van. And then they put my roommate behind me. Then we drove off. I really thought that we were going to be killed. I heard this horrible sound, my roommate being beaten with a rubber hose. And this just went on and on. And after 2.5 hours, we drove down this winding road. They carried us down into this little gully. The main perpetrator was still threatening us. He said very loudly, "Shoot him in the head." I didn't hear any sound from my roommate. I didn't know if he was dead or alive at that point. A moment later, the same guy that just committed that horrible act stepped over to me and crouched down and pressed something into my hand, and it was a small knife. He said, "I'm gonna throw this, and if you find the knife, you can cut yourself free and you'll live. Today is your lucky day," he says. Ha ha ha.
Wow. Bailey, I'm glad to meet you and terribly sorry for the circumstance. I wish we were talking about just almost anything else, right?
So do I.
You have to satisfy all of our curiosity about your strength in surviving this. What were you saying to yourself when this is happening? I mean, you wake up in the middle of the night, you've clearly got a home invasion, people are there, and it gets ugly fast, right? What are you saying to yourself?
From the moment that I woke up feeling the barrel of the gun at the back of my neck, I knew it was going to be bad. And I decided right away that I was going to stay calm. I was going to do whatever I could to survive. And furthermore, that I was going to pay attention to everything that I could hear so that I could help the police, if I did survive, catch the people who committed this horrible crime. And they were caught.
Right. Did you have any idea why they were there?
I had no idea.
How long before you figured that out? What did you hear that tipped you off that they were there looking for money? Obviously, it's a robbery or invasion, but they were specific. This was not random. They were targeting. your
They
roommate,
targeted my roommate. I had just moved into the house the day before. And I had one conversation with this roommate, and he was such a nice guy, and we're just a great guy. We just had a nice conversation, and I really didn't ask a lot of questions. And so, as a result, I did not know that he is an owner of a very successful and large medical marijuana dispensary in Orange County. And as a result of that, he was targeted specifically by these people.
And how long before they take you out of the house and into the desert? How long before they loaded you up and took you out?
Oh gosh, we were lying there hogtied and gagged and blindfolded for, it's hard to tell when you're like that, how time goes by, but it was maybe 10, 15 minutes. And I was thinking to myself, maybe they'll just take money out of the safe and leave us here. And when they came back downstairs, I knew that they had something else in mind. And the main person who was the only voice that I kept hearing the entire time started to ask my roommate, "Where's the money?" There was a specific amount of money. It was a very large amount of money, and they were convinced that he had it hidden somewhere, either in the house or in the desert, and they wanted it.
So they load you up, they take you to the desert. At one point, you said you heard liquid being poured, and you thought, what?
When they took us out into the desert, he started saying things like, "This is your last chance." And then I heard them pouring something on him, and I thought it was, my heart just dropped, and I thought it was lighter fluid, and I thought they were going to burn us alive.
And what did they ultimately do to him and then to you?
After he didn't give up the money, because there was never that amount of money, the main perpetrator, he was pretending with a fake Mexican accent that he was a Mexican gangbanger, and that his patron had a beef against my roommate for, cutting into their business. And that's why they were teaching him a lesson. He said, "My patron is very unhappy with you. If he doesn't get the money," he said, "he wants and he used the slang term for penis." And a few minutes later, that's what he did.
So he castrated him.
He took part of
Right.
the top part,
Yeah.
and they took it with them. I tried to just comfort him and asked him if he would stay calm, not try to move around, and I could see the highway. I had bare feet. It was a long gravel road, but I got down there as fast as I could. It took me probably about 20 minutes. And I can imagine what a sight I must have been on the side of the highway in the middle of the desert, in my pajamas, screaming for help and crying, and cars blowing past me with people's faces all like, at least 20 cars blew past me, and, who could blame them? I mean, it's not something you'd want to stop for.
Right.
But after about 2 minutes, thank God, I saw a police vehicle going the other way on the highway, and he saw me, made a U-turn, and we got help back up to my friend within about I would say 20, 25 minutes, and he was all right.
So he survived.
He survived.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break. Is it ever possible to recover and move on from such a horrific event? We'll talk about that, what you have to do to achieve that. We'll be right back.
My life has fallen apart. The panic attacks, flashbacks, insomnia, depression. I don't even know where to begin.
Tomorrow on Dr. Phil. She went from rabbi to Muslim, and her mother won't accept it.
She thinks you're going to become a terrorist. You haven't seen your daughter in a year. You haven't even looked at her.
She looks nothing like my daughter.
Is this another phase she's going through?
Before you wanted to be Dutch and move to Amsterdam and only get tulips for flowers.
Or has she found her destiny?
You think they're grooming her into a cult.
That's exactly what I believe.
That's tomorrow.
On October 2nd of 2012, Bailey found herself in the middle of a home invasion and kidnapping, all because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time by one day. The kidnapper's target was her roommate, John, but she found herself taken right along with him. Bailey was tied up and blindfolded while John was brutally beaten. Bailey and John lived to tell the story, but as you can imagine, it has left Bailey's life turned upside down. How are you doing emotionally, mentally, after this occurred?
Not good. And you know, I've asked myself, you know, you were so calm during that whole horrifying experience and made it through and afterwards, when everything was back to normal, my life has fallen apart. Right. I just started having horrible symptoms. Some of the worst are I get these blackouts where I can't remember things, and I would be driving and I wouldn't know where I was going. Or someone would say, oh, remember when I said such and such to you the other day? And I would be like, no. The panic attacks, flashbacks, insomnia, depression. I got fired from my job about 6 months after that. And the last couple of months, I've really been struggling, but I honestly, I don't even know where to begin.
It's hard to put your life back together, right? I mean, what do you trust? Everything has changed because you realize that that can happen to you and there was nothing you could do to stop it. There are two truths here that you have to embrace. One is there's no getting back to normal. I'm not going to lie to you. You will create a new normal, but it will be with different awarenesses, different sensitivities, different thoughts. But normal for you before this happened is a thing of the past. I mean, it really is. But there can be a new normal in which you can be happy and safe and joyful. I mean, that can happen, but it's not going to happen by itself. And as you say, you got through it because you were probably in a little bit of shock at the time. And I say a little bit because you still functioned. You were still able to do what you had to do to survive. So the fact that you were in shock, it wasn't a shock paralysis, thank God, because he would have bled to death and you would have been lost. That protected you during that time. But then when that fades, then the reality of it all comes rushing, and it overwhelms your coping energies. It overwhelms, you can't wrap your head around it, right? I mean, how do you wrap your head around something like this? It's just not supposed to happen. And so you have to have help with that. There's very specialized help available for survivors of this kind of trauma. There's no question to me, you are describing a classic case of PTSD, and damn well earned, may I say. I don't think I've ever met somebody who had a better reason for it than yourself. And that requires a very specific treatment protocol and some help kind of getting some momentum back into your life. So you've got to deal with this biochemically, neurologically, psychologically, and you're overwhelmed. I am glad that you're here because at the Dr. Phil show, when you come here, this conversation is the beginning, not the end. I want to bring you that help. You deserve that help. You're entitled to that help. And I'm going to make damn sure you get the help that you need. Okay? I'm talking about help mentally, emotionally, physically. And if you need help getting traction back in your life with a life coach or career help, whatever, we're going to circle around and give you some help, girl. Okay?
I have a laundry list.
Yes, you do. And I've got some people that'll come along and check that off. We've got a team that's going to help here, okay? Will you accept that from us?
Yes, very gratefully. Thank you so much.
All right. Up next, I want you to imagine living an 18-year nightmare as the suspect in your girlfriend and unborn child's disappearance. And that's not even half of it. With ties to Ariel Castro, this is one story you do not want to miss. We'll be right back.
17-year-old Christina Adkins left her West Side home never to be seen again.
The police showed up at my mother's house. They busted through the gate and told my sister, we got a call that you have Christina Adkins in this house or buried in the backyard.
And later, did you and Christina have a volatile relationship sometimes?
We had a wonderful relationship.
Where did the bruises come from that I saw on her arm? And I saw the black eyes.
Well, in the wake of the horrific Ariel Castro scandal, police in Cleveland began trying to clear up other missing girl cases in the area where Castro lived. On October 10th, 2013, the skeletal remains of one girl who had been missing for 18 years were found.
Could there be a break in a nearly 20-year-old cold case?
On January 11th, 1995, 17-year-old Christina Adkins left her West Side home 5 months pregnant, never to be seen again. For the past 18 years, the FBI has followed dozens of tips and leads.
Her case has been in the spotlight ever since police rescued Michelle Knight, Gina DeJesus, Amanda Berry, and her daughter from Ariel Castro's Seymour Avenue home. Their escape brought renewed hope to Christina's family. This is Elias Acevedo, identified by a federal task force as a person of interest.
The most recent tip led FBI agents and police to this home, just blocks away from Ariel Castro's house.
It was also a home Acevedo once lived in. That brings us to today's search under a highway bridge.
Christie's remains were found less than a mile from her home.
Acevedo is currently behind bars on $50,000 bond.
For nearly 2 decades, it was actually Christina's boyfriend, Jose, who was the prime suspect.
My brother Jose Rivera was in a relationship with Christina Adkins when she vanished without a trace. My family did not think that Christina was kidnapped at first.
The last time I saw Christina alive was January 10th, 1995.
At that time, Christina was 17 years old and she was 5.5 months pregnant.
I was hoping for a baby girl. Christina was also hoping for a girl.
Christina's family always blamed my brother for her disappearance.
We knew that Jose was innocent. Christina's family has been very cruel towards my brother Jose.
Christina's sister called me a baby killer.
They would actually yell out, "Murder, you're gonna go to jail." Police did consider Jose the main suspect. Jose has been brought in for questionings at least 5 times.
My life has been a nightmare.
Just last year, the police showed up at my mother's house out of nowhere with cadaver dogs. They busted through the gate and told my sister, "We got a call that you have Christina Atkins in this house or buried in the backyard." They didn't find anything. About a month ago, my sister Sonia had called me and told me, "You need to turn on the news because Elias has just spoken to the detectives that he had killed Christina Atkins, and he did lead them to the bodies."
When I heard that was her body found, it broke my heart.
He's been throwing up. Every time he hears something to do with Christina and that baby, he gets really ill.
I'm hoping that Christina's family will apologize to my brother.
Apology ain't enough. Yeah, apology is not enough for me. I want more. Yeah, I want more than an apology. I want more.
Well, I'm glad to meet all of you. Jose, let me start with you. First, let me say I'm very sorry for your loss. I know it's been many years, but I know you've just recently learned that, in fact, she is gone, deceased, as well as the unborn child. And I know that's had to hit you very hard. I'm sorry, very sorry for your loss. You guys had a good relationship and you were happy together?
Yes.
And when she went missing, what did you think had happened to her? I mean, did you think she had run away? Did you think she had, what did you think? Because you wouldn't expect her to just be gone, right? Did y'all talk about it?
Yes, we did. We thought that she may have been with her family, visiting her mother during that time that she disappeared the first few days. But then when she disappeared for a longer period of time, we knew something was wrong.
Right.
Or went to family members out of town. We never heard anything.
And you never thought that she had been kidnapped, right?
No.
That didn't occur to you? That wasn't
Not at all.
That wasn't on the radar?
No, not
you?
at all.
Never crossed our mind.
Now, you understand why you would be a suspect in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
You always look at the significant other. That's the first place that you go. And they came to you right away, correct?
Correct.
And did they ask you to take a polygraph?
Yes.
In the very beginning?
Yes.
And did you?
Yes.
And what were the results?
Innocent.
Him and my brother, they took both of my brothers, and him and my other brother. We have another brother, the youngest one. They took both of them and gave them a polygraph test, and they both passed it.
Yeah. So they polygraphed you early on, and you passed it.
I passed it.
But yet, you guys say that Christina's friends and family didn't know that, believe that, accept that, and have continued to harass all of you across the last 18 years.
Correct.
That's correct.
How so? What would they do?
They would stop in front of my mother's house, point fingers, call my brother names. They would call him a baby killer. They would, wherever he went, he would get beat up a lot of times by people who didn't even know him. They would put my brother through hell.
Well, Clint Van Zandt is with us today. He is an FBI profiler, has worked with the FBI for many, many years, and often comes to the show, helps us unravel these things. There is an expectation that you look at those closest to the person missing in the beginning, because statistics are pretty overwhelming about that, right?
Absolutely. We know statistically, for example, the greatest threat to the well-being of a pregnant woman is through the person that impregnated her. You know that. Right. And you know, as an FBI agent, having worked cases like this, the first thing we try to do is eliminate you, because we would more than willing move on to somebody else. I think the challenge in this case, Dr. Phil, was that at least in the FBI's mind and local authorities, they were never able to eliminate Jose. And in fact, Just in reviewing the case, I've come up with at least 10 different reasons why, if I was involved, Jose, I would consider you as a suspect, and until I found somebody else.
And what would be those 10? Just give me, give me all 10, but what would be examples that you're, as an FBI man, would look at?
Sure. For example, number one, and realize I'm not saying these allegations are true. I'm just saying this is what I've learned from the media, etc. Number one was that family members of hers suggest that you had beaten her, that they saw bruises on her arms, that she had black eyes not once, but 2 different times, that you wouldn't let her visit people, her friends, go away, that you were a very controlling person and that you controlled everything that was going on, that you had allegedly been seen going around town taking down missing person posters, and that you had gone out of your way to tell people that she really wasn't missing, she's just run away. Dr. Phil, when you hear those things, and again, in deference to the family, but when you hear those things, you have to center in on Jose until you can rule him out. 18 years, it looks like they never ruled him out.
So he stayed on their active list of considerations, and we'll let them respond to that. You and I both know what's reported in the media and what is
absolutely
are often dramatically different than what the reality is. Next, even though charges have been filed against Elias, Christina's family is still not sure about Jose's innocence. We're going to find out why and what they want to say when we come back.
I would describe their relationship as rocky because he was violent towards her. I saw bruises on my sister's arm. She told me Jose had done it.
I just wanted to go over and knock the tar out of him.
Police were led to the remains of Christina Atkins just a few weeks ago. Elias Acevedo has been charged with her murder and the murder of her unborn child. Now, Acevedo is facing a total of 293 charges, and at the time of his arrest, he was living across the street from now infamous Ariel Castro. Christina was missing for over 18 years, and her boyfriend Jose has been the prime suspect for that nearly 2 decades. Now, while Christina's family is relieved to finally know where she is, her stepmother Mary and stepsister Tonya are not so sure police have all the answers.
Christy started dating Jose, which is 17.
I would describe their relationship as rocky because he was violent towards her.
I started getting concerned about Christy because she started wearing longer sleeves.
I saw bruises on my sister's arm. She told me Jose had done it.
One day she had a black eye. I asked what happened, and she just said, he punched me. I just wanted to go over and knock the tar out of him.
I was 100% convinced in my heart that Jose had something to do with Christy's disappearance.
Jose was not sad.
He never came and passed out one flyer.
Why wasn't he out there helping find her and his baby?
We did not have interaction with him because the police told us that it would be considered harassment, but I always wanted to ask him what he did to my sister and why. Jose seemed to move on very quickly with his life. Only 2 weeks after Christy disappeared, I saw Jose throw away her belongings. A few months later, we had heard from multiple neighbors that he had married another woman. How do you just move on with your life as quickly as that? I held out hope for 18 years that she would come back. The FBI called on the 11th of October and told me that they had gotten a confession and he was leading them to where Christy's body was. It's a very hard day to realize that the one you love isn't coming back. The 18 years of not knowing was torture.
I still have doubts that Jose wasn't somehow involved. It's just one of those gut feelings.
Just come clean.
Well, Mary and Tonya are joining us now, and first let me say how sorry I am for your loss.
Thank you.
At this point, you know that this man has confessed and that he led them to her body. So, I mean, that authenticates him in that he knew where she was. Now, am I right that this Elias Acevedo, if I'm pronouncing it right, is your cousin?
Was.
So you disown him, is your
Correct.
point. I understand. You two still believe that Jose is involved in some way?
I believe that Jose may have known. It's hard to explain. He was the prime suspect for 18 years. And, you know, it's hard to say, oh, well, all of a sudden he's innocent. You have to give us some time to cope with this too. You know, it's not something that we can just magically do. You know, I try to be nice, I try to be friendly. We live very close to each other.
Right.
You know, I try not to go out of my way to do anything disrespectful. But, you know, we need some...
But you all did all those times. You know, come to the house, whatever. Well, at least
that
your
wasn't
brother,
us.
your brother.
That was my brother. My
yeah,
brother.
Your brother.
My brother does what my brother
and,
wants.
I mean, I understand. Well, we all been gone through this, you know, but you never gave us the chance for the family together to go through this because all the harassment.
Right.
You know,
because
and if you
the
all
police,
come, the family could have come together.
But the police told us not to come to you guys.
Okay, I can understand that.
Because
But
it would be...
sit there and say that my brother still has something to do with it, when my distant cousin just admitted to what he's done.
At one time, they were friends. At one time, they were close.
No, they were friends. We were cousins, family.
Right, but you were
used to come to the house. We used to let him come to the house. We used to let her come visit.
Right.
All of a sudden, he just like
Well, let me just say,
stay away.
You're just telling them, look, don't be mad at us for what my brother did.
Right.
He does what he wants to do, but yet you want to hold him accountable for what his distant cousin did? You can't have it both ways. I'm just saying, think about that for a minute. Did you and Christina have a volatile relationship sometimes?
We had a wonderful relationship.
Where did the bruises come from that I saw on her arm? And I saw the black eyes.
Tomorrow on Dr. Phil. She went from rabbi to Muslim, and her mother won't accept it.
She thinks you're going to become a terrorist. You haven't seen your daughter in a year. You haven't even looked at her.
She looks nothing like my daughter.
Is this another phase she's going through?
Before you wanted to be Dutch and move to Amsterdam and only get tulips for flowers.
Or has she found her destiny?
You think they're grooming her into a cult.
That's exactly what I believe.
That's tomorrow.
Where did the bruises come from? Where were the bruises where did the bruises come from that I saw on her arm and I saw the black eyes? Where did those come from? If you didn't do it, where did they come from?
Tanya, you know, that really makes me wonder, if that was happening to Christina, why couldn't you come to our home and ask Jose?
Because we didn't feel comfortable coming to your home.
Why?
But if she felt she was being abused,
You should come over.
We were trying to get her to come home.
You're right to do it.
We wanted her home.
Let me ask you a question, Jose.
Yes.
Did you and Christina have a volatile relationship sometimes?
We had a wonderful relationship.
Did you ever hit her, or did you ever put bruises on her at some time?
No, I never.
I'm not saying if you did, that means that you're involved in her death. But if they want to know, did you all fuss and fight sometimes?
On my behalf, as a man I am, I was a good, excellent, wonderful boyfriend. I would never put my hands on Christina.
So, Clint, how do you resolve these things in terms of trying to solve the puzzle?
Well, know that the challenge that investigators face for both sides of the family is, you know, I've heard what you have said, Jose, and I take it at face value. Dr. Phil, we have someone who's come forward, as you say, has raised her hand, said I did it, has allegedly led police to the body. But there's three different reasons law enforcement has to look at that. Number one, your cousin Lee did it entirely by himself. Realize he was seen with her, Dr. Phil, the night she disappeared, and it took over a decade for somebody to even mention, oh, by the way, we saw Lee with the missing young woman. 10, 15 years later before that even came up. So number one, perhaps Lee did it by himself. Okay, let me finish. Number two, Lee did it with someone else. And Lee is confessing his part of it, but he may not have mentioned the name of another person. And Dr. Phil, number three, is somebody who's worked cases, as you know, murder cases, serial killer cases. Many times we'll see someone who's already going to prison for life, who'll raise her hand and say, oh yeah, I did it, because they want to manipulate the system and they want to know that they've allowed the real killer to stay out there why they confess and go to prison. Those are three different things the FBI and law enforcement has to resolve while they look at this whole case and try to satisfy the needs of both families and try to give justice to this young lady who can't cry out for justice anymore.
Did you ever go around and tear down flyers?
No.
That didn't happen? You didn't go pull flyers off
No.
telephone poles or anything?
No.
Did you throw out her clothes?
No.
Because it's reported that you did those things, so I'm happy for you to say either you did or you didn't. And again, if you took down flyers or you threw out her clothes, that's a big leap to the fact that you murdered her. Sometimes people say, oh, well, if they were fussing and fighting, then therefore he killed her. That's something you have to consider, but that certainly doesn't mean that that's the person that took her life. And despite the fact that you say there are two ancillary theories that you have to consider here, you have to say it goes a long, long way towards exonerating him that someone has stepped up, confessed it, and went to the body.
Absolutely. Now, the best hope here is that there's linking physical evidence with the body somehow that would link Lee to the murder. And number two, this person who came forward a decade and a half later who can link Lee with her, hopefully that evidence there is going to be used to help the FBI finally solve this terrible mystery that you've all labored under for almost 2 decades.
I've avoided him as much as possible because I did blame him.
We can't do this show without you, our studio audience.
If you're going to be in the Los Angeles area and you would like free tickets, go to drphil.com and click on Be in the Audience.
Because we have a lot of fun here, don't we? Or you can call 323-461-PHIL. Do you think that you guys may well have been unfair to him over the last 18 years?
Yes, I'm honest, absolutely. I've avoided him as much as possible. I've, not gone by his house specifically so I didn't have to see him because I did blame him. And I'm sorry for that. I know I'm sorry doesn't bring Christy back. It doesn't bring the baby back. I know that, but I lost a sister too. Remember, when she disappeared, I was only 12. My sister didn't get to see me grow up. My sister didn't get to see me get married. My sister didn't get to see me have a baby. She missed a lot out of my life, and we've missed everything out of her life.
It's not just Jose who has suffered on his own.
No.
My mother suffered a heart attack over this 7 years ago. My mother is not well. My brother Jose is not well ever since Christina became missing.
We were always told to stay away. If we come near your house, would be harassment, and we'd go to jail. And so we were trying to do what was right,
And
not to harass.
And that's why we never came and asked you guys to come help us pass out flyers or anything like that. Because we were told if communication with you, you guys could sue us for harassment. Well, we didn't want that. I mean, we didn't have anything.
What I would have to say that if I wouldn't go pass out flyers either if everywhere I went I'm getting punched. My brother was harassed horribly over these.
And I don't know who did that to you, and I'm sorry.
And, you know, it's hard for him to express himself. He's been through so much. He needs help. He's got a lot of problems right now with this issue. And now that you know, they found her body, we were always hoping that she was alive, you know, and at the same time, we was hoping to have closure, because, you know, to see him go through all this pain, and my mom too, you know, deteriorating little by little.
My dad passed away 4 years ago, not
and
knowing.
both for the family. I know that we're all gone through, you know, and now we could just mourn together. Mourn together. And
I'm glad to hear y'all talking in that way.
You know,
and I think, and as Clint says, if everybody will just have some patience and let this thing unfold, with everybody having an attitude that you do now, hopefully this animus will drop out and we'll be able to close the gap here. We're going to take a break, and next there are still 2 cold cases from the Cleveland area. More on that when we come back. Stop justifying your inactivity and avoiding the challenge of change. For help getting started, go to drphil.com for 11 seasons of advice, articles, and exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Plus, sign up for the Dr. Phil community to share your story and find support from others, all on drphil.com. We would like to remind everyone that there are still currently 2 unsolved cases in the Cleveland area. And the first one is Amy Mahalovic, and Ashley Summers is the other. And you're seeing them up on the screen right now. And we're going to have these up on our website for you to go and look at closer. And anyone with any information should contact the FBI Violent Crime Task Force at 216-522-1400. And I want to give a special thanks to Clint Van Zandt for his expertise in all the cases today. Clint, any final comments on all of this?
Yeah, you know, I think we've learned so much today. We've seen so many people in tragedy, and yet, thank God, there are people like you that are trying to help them get through on a day-by-day basis. So thank you for what you do.
Well, it's heartbreaking, and I know this has been tough for all of them. They're certainly in all of our prayers. For information on today's show, please go to drphil.com. And again, if you know anything, we'll have a link right there. Thanks for being here today so much.